Hey guys, welcome back. So I recently made a video about the skill gap between good Mythic Plus players and subpar Mythic Plus players, and what qualifies a good player versus an average player or a below average player. And I thank you for everyone that watched the video. It got a lot of views and quite a few comments. And I really like how there was a discussion. You know, some people agreeing with me and some people disagreeing with me, and I wanted to make a video highlighting those comments, whether they agree with me or disagree with me, and I want to kind of just give you my take on them and kind of add to the discussion. So with that, let's get started here. So the first one is, this is not about me being elitist. He's quoting here. Says every elitist you could possibly say, and that wasn't necessarily my intention. I was just being honest with what it takes to be a good player. There are actionable steps to becoming a good player, and it might come across as blunt or harsh, but the reality is, if you want to be a good player, there are certain things you have to do in order to achieve that. And I summarized, several things that allow you to become a much better player. And for some people, they don't really care about getting better at the game, and I kind of read some of those comments as well, so that's fine. So that was more directed at people who do want to get better at the game and who kind of want to break the chains of mediocre play and play with mediocre players. Those are actionable steps to get to that next level. So if it came across as elitist, that wasn't really my intention, but I respect that opinion. So the next one, try doing any key level with a tank that doesn't know how to tank or play their class. And yeah, no, I I definitely can see that. I mean, that's a really big reason why I decided to play tank. I used to just be a DPS player, and going from Shadowlands, where I just DPS'd, I actually mainly just did Arena in Shadowlands, and I did a little bit of Mythic Plus just for the mounts in Shadowlands, but that was as with DPS. And I played with a tank, and he was fine. He did his best, but I felt like I could do better, and I kind of saw early on, like, good tanks are hard to come by, and I realized they are a hot commodity, especially compared to DPS, which is just, there's a sea of DPS out there. So I thought, leading into Dragonflight, I want to control my own destiny here and be a tank, so I don't have to wait around for a tank or healer. So knowing that I had the skills, to be a tank, just because, like, DPS wise, I knew I would be like on the higher end of the DPS as a tank, so I thought I had that advantage coming as a DPS player to tank, and I knew I was just really good at the game. I thought, I will be a hot commodity because not a lot of people want to play tank. So yeah, like, a lot of people do want to play with me because I know what I'm doing. So I've heard people all the time saying, yeah, it's hard to find a good tank because people don't really like to tank, and that could be another conversation, for another day. And yeah, there's just really not that many. So I can understand playing with someone or a tank that doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't know the route, and it's just going really slow, because the tank is leading. They're leading the sheep effectively. They're the sheep herder in this whole thing. So the group only goes as fast as the tank in some capacity. Obviously, like, the DPS do have a huge say in it as well with their output, but yeah, I understand that point. So another one I read here, this was a good one. To be honest and quite frank, a massive portion of players right now don't have the capability to learn to do these dungeons better, and a big chunk of the reason why lies within having zero interest in wanting to do them better. The game itself does a very poor job at communicating to players what is actually going on, what causes A, to lead to be. It leaves many players completely oblivious to how poorly they are playing. Blizzard has to do a better job telegraphing what is going on in trash group fights and boss fights. If the game allows players to more easily understand what is happening, a lot more players would be able to do the content at a higher success rate. So, this is a good comment. A lot going on here, but the main point is interesting, and I do agree that if you were just playing with the base UI, so you have no add-ons or weak auras, and even if you do, you don't really know what is important to stop in terms of interrupts or CC. There's some casts like in Stonevault. I think Stonevault is a good example of this. The pack or the group in the hallway to the left leading to Siskarn, I think is the blue elemental boss. That hallway. There's trash packs where 2 out of the 3 casts are important to kick, but not nearly as important as the third one. And that is the third one being Piercing Whale, I think it's. Yeah, Piercing Whale. That one, if not kicked, especially on a higher key, has a really good chance of just killing your entire group. It's a massive AoE that, especially if you're not topped off, can kill most of your group or just set you really far behind. Whereas there's other casts in there, like the censoring one that silences, a random person, or the I think the curse dispel in there as well. Those aren't nearly as important. Like you'll survive if a couple of those casts go off, but if Piercing Whale goes off, there's a good chance that someone's going to die in that. So, but you wouldn't know just from the base UI because it's just the same. It's the same cast bar for everything. So if you're someone that doesn't know, it's just going to go off and you won't understand what happened. So now a lot of ways people can counter that is with weak auras, with add-ons. For example, I specifically use Plater, and the Plater profile I use, which is Quasi's Plater profile, which I highly recommend. Been using that since Dragonflight. The profile is set up where the cast bar, or I should say the cast bar will highlight very obviously what is an important cast to kick. So when Piercing Whale is going off, the cast bar gets really, really big, bright. It's like visually telling me that is important to kick. We need to kick it. So if Blizzard introduced something like integrated that into their base UI, and they've done this in the past with add-ons where they've integrated like quality of life things from add-ons into the game, I think they could do that with the priority interrupts, because players know, the people that develop these like profiles and whatnot know what's important to kick. So Blizzard could do the same thing and create a base UI to tell you visually, like, hey, this is something important to interrupt. You should probably interrupt it. So things like that, I think Blizzard could do, and it would certainly help the players, because I think most players are visual. Like, they're seeing what's on the screen, and if something is obvious, like flashing at you, then I think it would do a much better job for players, and then we learn over time, at least with the dungeon pool, like this is something important to kick. So that was a good point there, and I think that's something that Blizzard could definitely help with. So there's a few comments here that are similar. First one is If 12s are your, quote, lower keys, buddy, I have sad news for you. Pugging 8s for Guild Crest is beyond terrible this season. Another one is plus 12 is low key. Try plus 5 Arcar with players with 2400 score and no idea how the last boss works. And here's another one. So many misunderstandings in this video. The, quote, lower level keys definition you have already made scratches my head. 95% of people I know and play with don't really play above 11, so low level key is 5, maybe 6 for us. I can understand these, and maybe it's just my perspective, because, you know, I'm used to doing keys at this point, you know, in the 15, 16 range. I've attempted some 17s, not many, but like I'm trained now for those keys. So when I go down a key level, or several key levels, you know, what I mentioned in the video, it's much easier for me. And also I just have a lot of gear, right? I mean, at this point, I think I'm like almost 637 eye level. So, you know, going down to 10 to 12, just by the sheer numbers, like, it's just going to be much easier. So, it's just perspective, I guess, because, you know, sure, I play in the 0.1% bracket, but there's a 1% within the 0.1% bracket that probably would look at the key level I'm doing and have the same reaction to my reaction with the 10 and 12. So they would probably be like, this guy's a noob. You know, I'm doing 17s, 18s, 19s. Yeah, this guy is like, you know, struggling in 16s, 17s. Like, get out of here. So it's all perspective, so I can understand that. So yeah, I probably should, from my experience, go down a few more levels just to see the true struggle. Because I mean, reasonably, like, it's not that bad. At least the keys I've done, like, just like for example, this week, I haven't really been able to play a lot with I haven't been able to play a lot with my team at all because they've been on vacation. So I've been filling out my vault and doing like 10s and 11s, and they haven't been bad at all. So it probably, yeah, like these comments mentioned, probably a lot worse as I go down the key level, which proves my point from the first video, or the most recent video I made, where it's like, yeah, the lower you go, the more difficult it gets, which is a weird phenomenon. Next comment I saw was in Dragonflight, I used to be a mid-high key pusher as a tank, 23 to 25 in Season 1, so for today's standards, that would be 13 to 15 with the eye level squish. So, you know, pretty high level keys. Nowadays, I don't care to push that high. I play around the 8 to 10 range. So I guess old squish, that would be, yeah, 18 to 20. The reason why people don't like Mythic Plus right now is Blizzard's design. Visual clarity in new dungeons is horrible, and mobs are over-designed. I mean, I don't know if that's really the issue. Like, I don't know if it's like a lot of visual clutter. I think it's more so the changes to CC, where, you know, it used to be, you know, back in Dragonflight, you CC and it would act as an interrupt, so the cast wouldn't keep going off. But now it's like casts just keep continuing even if you CC, like they'll just restart. So I think that adds to the visual clutter. You just cast bars stopping and then repeating. You stop it, it repeats itself. So I don't know. Maybe it's just because I played this game so much that doesn't really get to me, the visual clutter. I tend to keep my UI pretty clean and like as basic as possible. I mean, I do have quite a bit of weak auras that I've added along the way as I've kind of progressed. I mean, maybe they can tone it down a little bit, but I personally think it's in a pretty decent spot. And then the next comment here is, not really sure what the point of this video was. Just get skill friends. Great tip. Kind of just join a decent guild or just play the game 24/7. This video has zero value and it's clearly just to brag. Weird. I mean, look, the reality is, if you want to progress in this game at a high level, you have to play with good people. You have to play with good players. It's an MMORPG for a reason. I mean, you have to work together to achieve your goals. It's not a solo game. There's other games where you can just play it solo, like I don't know, like a single player RPG game or something like that. But this is an MMORPG where you do need people to work with, and I like it that way. I like that socialization. It's just reality. It's like you have to play with good people if you want to move up in the ranks. And for some people, they don't care, and that's fine. You can play the game the way you want. I just like to play the game at the top end. So in order for me to play the game at the top end, I have to play with good players. And unfortunately, that means I can't play with certain friends. I mean, that's just reality. Like, I'll help people from time to time, with their keys, but when it's time to push, I have to play with good players. And thankfully, the players I do play with, and see, here's the key too. Like, I only surround myself not only with good players, but with good people as well. The people that I play with in my push group are not only great players, but they're also great people. So it's I get the best of both worlds. So I mean, you can call it me bragging or whatnot, but it's just the reality. You want to get better, you want to progress, you have to play with good players. So that's that. Next one here is people undervalue utility and dungeon knowledge. Lower keys such as 4 through 10s in a pug can be disastrous. You can look at logs and see no interrupts, dispels, cleanses, or CC and wonder why they aren't being successful. And I mean, I agree, and that's what I mentioned in the previous video, that the game is not inherently that difficult. It just requires you to use your toolkit. It's kind of a tangent, but it used to be like before Mythic Plus, when it was just a raid or die atmosphere. You, especially as a DPS, but this really goes for a lot of roles, did not have to use utility at all. You didn't have to use like half of your toolkit in raid. You just had to use your basic requirements. Like, there was rarely any need for CC or interrupts or any other form of utility, because I mean, raiding is with 19 other people, and you can kind of get away with not using your full toolkit. Now, with Mythic Plus, it unleashed your toolkit, where it's like you need to use your entire toolkit to succeed. And it really did expose a lot of people who were kind of able to kind of like hide in the crowd when it came to raiding. And now, like, you see people who may be able to perform in raid, not perform in Mythic Plus at all, because they just they don't know how to use their toolkit. So if people just simply learn their class throughout, and I mean like everything, it just becomes a much better experience for everyone in Mythic Plus. And that kind of leads into the next comment. PvE is designed to be beatable if you know the game. High-end content isn't particularly difficult with a good group. However, statistics prove that most players aren't good at the game. The game has been overcomplicated since MoP, or even before that. I mean, the game has gotten progressively more difficult, and I think that has to do with also the player base just getting more advanced. I don't know. For me personally, like, look, I've been playing this game since vanilla. How old was I? I was probably around like 13, 14 years old when I started playing vanilla. And I've been pretty much playing this game throughout. minus like Legion and BFA, I kind of took a break. But other than that, I have, close to 2 decades of experience. And as a result, I just got better and better at the game. And there's a lot of people like me who have just simply gotten better and better at the game. And they love this game, but they need more. It's like, if the game kind of stayed, I mean, like, I went back and played Classic when Classic came out, and it's like, I like to use this analogy. It's like an NBA player going to play in China. Like, I would say, like, like an average NBA player going over to China and being like a superstar and averaging like 100 points. That's what Classic was, because it's just incredibly simple, mechanically, for classes and raids. It was fun. I had a lot of fun because I got to just shut off my brain and just, parse. It was a lot of fun, but I need something to stimulate me and, and kind of fuel my competitive spirit. And that's what WoW does for me, with Mythic Plus. Some people probably have been left behind, but there are other things to do in World of Warcraft, which is the great thing. I mean, there are delves and other various casual activities. So, I mean, I think Mythic Plus should be difficult, and other high-end PvE content should be difficult. Are there some things that Blizzard can tune down? Probably. Yeah, I agree with that. Really, the last comment is you should go lower for even more surprising discoveries, and I've gotten a few of those comments, and yeah, stay tuned. I'm gonna go even deeper into this rabbit hole and see where it takes me. Yeah, so I hope you like this video. It's kind of a different type of video, I think, going through comments. I really, again, appreciate all the people that did comment. It gave me some perspective, and it was really nice to kind of give you my thoughts and kind of extend on these comments. If you liked what you heard, please like, comment, subscribe, and look out for the next video. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.